when you start understanding, body language, for example, right? Okay, like, and I'm sitting across, say that you're a seller, and I'm sitting across a table from you, and you do that. I mean, I can lean harder into whatever topic I'm talking about, right? If it's the offer, if it's elaborating on a seller financing structure and how that works, like, okay, I know that I'm good, right? And I'm not, triggering any red flags because you're showing me interest with body language. It's very interesting.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Real Estate Investor Podcast. Today I have a really awesome guest. His name is Rafael Cortez. Rafael Cortez is an accomplished entrepreneur. He's a wholesaler. He is a real estate broker and an investor. He also has a master's degree in organizational psychology. So we'll see how that fits into real estate pretty soon. But he's out of Phoenix, and he does the Pulse Group. He has also the Real Estate Wholesaling Academy, which is group coaching for people who want to get started in wholesaling, and the REI Elite, which is more of a one-on-one coaching with him. So very excited to have this guest on. Rafael, how you doing today?
Doing well, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's awesome. It's awesome to be with people like you that have been in the trenches for a while, in the game, and to be able to learn from you. So if you don't mind me asking, just tell me a little bit about this organizational psychology. How does these principles that you learn there, how do they solve common issues that you face as an entrepreneur or other, entrepreneurs face? How's that?
So organizational psychology, I mean, it's the study of people and business, right? People and systems. So basically you're taking human behavior and then you're plugging, operations, SOPs, the whole, the KPI thing and flow charts and all that stuff, and then making it click with behavioral strengths and tendencies. So you have a combination of the two, right? So there's a lot that happens, on the hiring side of things, on the architecting of the business itself. You get rid of redundancies because you're kind of taking into consideration how people are thinking, what the thought process is behind the person who's at that seat, and then crafting the role to optimize it. So there's a lot of things that click, but it's I mean, think about, kind of like the example is, people and systems doing this and working together, right? It's pretty interesting, man. I got into real estate in 2009, and that's actually when I went back to school. I got my bachelor's degree in business then. And then a couple of years later, I got a couple of master's degrees, one in psychology and then specialized in organizational psychology. So I became an organizational psychologist. But the understanding of that human factor, I mean, human capital is one of the most overlooked things, I think, when it comes to biz ops, right? I mean, we always focus on KPIs. We focus on, standard operating procedures, as entrepreneurs. We want to build the systems and the processes and all that stuff. And the tendency, if you're moving too fast, is to forget about the people element. And I mean, that's the key. That's the thing that drives the entire thing. Whatever machine you have, right? You can have a McLaren sitting right there, but if your pilots are crappy, it's not going to go anywhere. You know what I mean? Or it's not going to be very effective. So it's the same thing that happens. And just having some perspective on both aspects, I mean, just allows me to build the business in a fashion that, attrition is less, so I don't have people quitting all the time. The business culture is very cohesive. People will go the extra mile, but it's because we're working within the bounds of behavioral strengths, if that makes sense.
Okay, gotcha. That's amazing. So it is very geared towards, how people work and the systems. So tell me a little bit about this, because obviously you've been able to build teams in different companies, right? So tell me a little bit about, how does this affect your leadership style? What practices do you use and do you find effective, that allow you to have multiple, companies in different sectors,
I come from the school of servant leadership. That was actually an emphasis when I was going through one of my earlier degrees, and I mean that resonated, right? It landed. It felt right. It felt good. So one is leading by example, and And, it's going to be one of the things. It doesn't mean staying in the trenches, for the entirety of the business, right? But if something needs to happen, something, somebody needs, help, assistance, training, it's having the wherewithal to be responsible and acknowledge that, hey, listen, this is, at the end of the day, this is my vehicle. Right. And I feel like when your team starts to see that, right, they see your growth, they see your level of responsibility, they will adopt it, man. If we're flying by the seat of our pants and then just, checking in here and there and not really bought into what's going on, they're not going to have a lot of respect for the ownership of the company. You can plug somebody else in who's sitting on that role. And then they'll have a lot of respect for that person because, they're going into the ring with them per se on a regular basis. But it takes that. So if you're not to the level where you have like a chief operating officer, or, something like that in place, you can't just, hire a couple of VAs and expect the thing to run. Right. That's how things break all the time.
Yeah.
But it falls right into alignment with leadership. It's at the end of the day, everybody is working for themselves, right? We have to acknowledge that as leaders, and they're using our vehicle to get to whatever, destination they want to get to. Right. So they use my vehicle for, to reach their dreams, their desires. They want to buy a house, they want to buy a car, they want to go on vacations, they want to whatever, level up. The opportunity that I put on the table is listen, I'm the vehicle that you want to take there because, this is what we're doing, and, embrace the vision. So there's a lot of self-growth that goes into it. There's a lot of ego that has to be left aside and just but mitigated, especially when you're a bootstrap entrepreneur. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting journey, man. It just, it forces you to hold the space. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about it.
Okay, that's amazing. So let me ask you a little bit about, your businesses right now. So how much are you doing right now in business in terms of wholesale deals? Either whatever you feel comfortable sharing, either revenue a month or deals a month, in your businesses, just so that we can frame the conversation in a way so that people pay attention, so that you have.
We and this is by design. We hover around the 15 to 20 deal mark. It keeps everybody busy, keeps everybody healthy. And I have a lot of stuff that I'm also doing besides the wholesaling operation. So running, it's a good metered cadence. Usually, the average revenue per deal right now, we had it at 32,000 at the beginning of June, and then it dropped a little bit. So I think we're right around 28,000 revenue per deal. And on average, right? And we have some, bangers at 60, 70, 80K, and then we have some that are tens and just kind of fluctuate between the the numbers there. But that's how the wholesale operation stands. I do have a couple of acquisition guys. I have a couple of disposition guys on the sales side. So they're actively, reaching out to buyers whenever a deal hits the whiteboard. I do have 2 people that are supporting them on the marketing for deal marketing side. So I'm pretty robust when it comes to the dispo side of operations. As long as you have SOPs and everybody, understands what their lane looks like, it's very doable to start tapering away from the business. I think at this point, I spend on average, like actively, maybe 4 to 6 hours on the wholesale business a week.
Wow.
So aside from that, it's and I do and I say that because I do huddle calls every morning. So we'll hop on a huddle 10-15 minutes and then touch base, and then I do an operations meeting. That's about 60 minutes long, and we do that on Tuesdays where I come in, I track scorecard, KPIs, metrics, deals, all that stuff. So we're very systematic when it comes to that, but we're always talking back and forth and whatnot on Slack and have the channels open. My entire team is virtual, so I have an office, but they never come into the office.
That's nice. Okay, that's great. So that's wonderful. So you're doing 15 to 20 deals a month. Average, revenue is 28,000. So you're making, 400 to 450 a month. That's nice. And it wasn't always like this, right? So, someone that's listening to this, that's starting, real estate is going to look at you and say, okay, wow, you've done something amazing. You're working 4 to 6 hours a week on your wholesaling business. You're making that much money or, revenue.
Let's backtrack there a little bit. One thing you didn't ask about, I didn't mention, was there's always attrition. So we usually have around 15 to 20 deals on the board. Right now, the deal to close ratio is at 62%. So 62% of the deals that we lock up close, right?
Gotcha.
And I track that on the KPIs.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there's always going to be fall off. Either, the buyer didn't perform, we, ran out of time, the seller started ghosting us, or something happened, right? But sometimes, we get to new markets, and like I do business nationwide, so we get leads all over the place. Sometimes we don't know the market that well. We still find it. You lock up the deal under like Phoenix numbers, and it's too high for that market, right? So there's some, realistically speaking, what I want to do is paint the picture. Like, it's not all perfect, and like there's always going to be something that you're going to have to overcome, right? As an entrepreneur. But we have our closing ratio is at 62.
Nice.
So we lock up stuff, and then about 62% of that closes. That's what we have as the last month. So
yeah, that's cool. All right.
And it fluctuates, goes higher, goes lower.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of these ways that people can get into it. So like, what kind of lead generation methods are you using, and what do you recommend someone to use? Who's just starting? Maybe. Let's break it down into someone has no money, someone has maybe $1,000, and then someone has more than $1,000 in budget.
If you have $1,000, do just save it. Don't drop it into a lead generation campaign. Don't start going on PPC or PPL, and especially if you're getting started. The reason I say that is because you may have a healthy budget for marketing. But if you haven't closed, if you haven't negotiated deals in the past, if you haven't had the conversations, you don't know what the rebuttals are. You don't know what those numbers are, need to end up at yet. And that takes repetition, right? So you got to put in the reps somehow, some way. I always encourage people to door knock. Like, if you're broke and you don't have, money for marketing, go after door knocking leads. It's the fastest way to get in front of somebody. We actually have door knocking, teams deployed in Florida, Arizona, and honestly, like, some of the best deals come from that. We will get a pre-foreclosure list. And now we do it through internal software that it's just automatically scraping county data and then compiling all this information for our drivers, so they have mapping software. But when we didn't have that, it was like, okay, cool. Go to title company, pull up a pre-foreclosure list for the area, and then start looking at those properties, do some cross-referencing and see what has equity, make a list of those properties and go door knock them. Right? Have those conversations, simple script, right? But you get in front of the seller right away. The thing about it, Julian, is that people don't want to do that. That's why it doesn't work. People don't want, oh no, like, how am I going to do that? It's a lot of work. And people just don't want to put in the effort. That's what happens. But the opportunity is out there. So if you're tenacious enough, right, to do something like that, you don't need to have, 5, 10K as starting capital for big marketing campaigns. I actually don't recommend dropping big, massive dollars. If anything, drop some cash into cold calling campaigns if you don't want to, like, if you're not going to be door knocking. But do it methodically, right? And drop some cash into cold calling campaigns, because as you're cold calling, you're putting in the reps. You're practicing, again, those conversations. They're going to ask you a lot of stuff they're not going to have answers for. But when you're when you're cold calling, like, you get to practice. Those are your practice runs. And when you have a real lead, a real prospect, somebody who wants to negotiate and actually talk price points, you're better suited for that conversation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, people can get started for very little money, through getting a list through the title company, just going door knocking.
Yeah.
And that's really like the best kind of experience you can get. You're right in front of the prospect and you're just, getting at it. So totally. So let me ask you about some of the things that the questions that people ask during a call with a seller or during a encounter with a seller. What are some key things that someone would have to know in order to kind of figure out if this is a deal or not, or at least get somewhere further ahead?
Well, I mean, you're gonna have to understand your market. So understand your numbers. Like the numbers here are not the same. Or I'm based out of Phoenix, Arizona, so very competitive market and whatnot. But it's the numbers here are not the same as if I make an offer in Atlanta, for example, right? Or if I'm working, my Jacksonville and Florida markets. They're different numbers, different thresholds, right? So for example, we have to lock them down deeper over there and sell them at a bigger discount. Otherwise, buyers are not going to hop to them. And it's just how it works, right? So understand that, the evergreen formula, right? Like 70% minus repairs, minus expenses, and the whole thing. You may have to tweak that a little bit as you're going. So one, making sure that you understand the numbers for your area is important. I like to tap into the right areas right out of the gate, and I can give you some pointers on how to choose that. And as far as the conversation goes, always lead with value. Like you are, I mean, there's a ton of scripts. And I can give you guys, if you guys want a copy of my full conversation, my entire, acquisitions and pre-qualifier and, full conversation script, I can share that with you. It's not a problem. But it's on there. So there's things that people are going to be ready to fight you on, right? One is going to be like the repairs. Oh, my property's move-in ready. It's stellar. It's great. I have 2 orange trees in the front yard. And so they're going to be ready, right, for some battles. But when you come in, if you're prepped, right, like you're not going to necessarily drive them to the ground on those fights. I mean, you're going to pick a different approach. You go, down the comps route. You go down, the traditional expenses for a regular sale route. So there's different things that you can come in and opportunities to build up your profit margin on the deals as you're going through them, if that makes sense. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, sellers they're gonna think their house is mint condition when it's really not. It hasn't been renovated for the last 10 years. And if someone were to get this property, they would have to do a full interior rehab because that's just the way things work. So totally. So all right, and tell me. So we mentioned that, there's different numbers in different markets, right? If someone is looking to do it in their backyard or is looking to do it somewhere else, what are some ways that they can figure out what the buyers are buying at, whether it's like 70 or 80% of ARV, what is a way to, find that out if you have any?
I use a platform called goinvestorbase.com. But they'll give you, I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but it's fairly, fresh. It hasn't been out there for a long time, but I've been using it very successfully over the last couple of months. And they will actually give you, you can't opt in as a buyer to that platform or anything. It's not a marketplace. It just gives you records of who has bought cash properties in that area, right? And like if it was a fix and flip, it'll tell you. If it was a buy and hold, it'll tell you, and it'll tell you what they bought it for. So like right now, one of the first things that we're doing through underwriting is, okay, awesome. Like we get a property address and then we'll run our numbers and then we'll double check, we'll cross-reference with what buyers are paying in those areas, especially if we don't know the area. Right. But it's a really good platform to get some of that information from. That's one. I mean, we use that as on the regular. Now, as far as tapping into different markets, I love to keep things simple, man, and simple and executable, right? It's if we get into this complicated process of so many different factors and elements and whatnot, people are not going to go through them. It becomes too hard to train, to teach. But if you look at a market, right, you're interested in end market, look at a population of over 300,000 people, right? It's one of the first things that I begin with. Like, okay, if I'm going to drop a marketing campaign, I'm thinking about this particular area. Okay, do they have over 300,000 people in the area? Okay, cool. That's usually going to give me a decent buyer base, right? I can go in there and do a 5-mile radius search for cash buyers whenever I land a deal there. And start hitting them, like proactively hitting them and go after them. And that's one. I look for days on market that are between 60 to 90 days. It takes 30 days to to escrow. So 30 days on marketing, 30 for escrow. I mean, it's relatively, fast market. I don't like to go beyond 90 days on days on market, because that'll give me the speed of the market, right? The demand. And price points of, average price points that are between the $250,000 to $450,000 range. That usually gives me a decent amount and keeps me steady on the assignment fee spreads, right? We call them, the profits. So that'll give me kind of like that cadence that I'm looking for. And I end up finding similar markets throughout the country, but I keep it simple, right? So tapping into a new market, make sure that's sustainable. If you go into a very small town and whatnot, and you're getting started, you may have a lot of challenge. I mean, maybe you won't have a lot of pushback on locking the deal, but you have to think about the exit strategy as you're locking it up.
Yeah.
So that's those are some of the factors that I look at when I'm deploying.
That makes sense. So you want to make sure that when you're going into a market that it has enough population, that you have a decent price point for the houses, so you can get a nice commission on that, and then you start lead generation. So obviously you would recommend people do door knocking or cold calling, right? If they're starting out, because they need to get the reps in.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways that you now start reaching out to these buyers, once they have the experience?
I feel like eventually you want to be in a race for inbound leads, right? Inbound leads are going to be a lot easier to work with. You're not going to have like the legwork becomes a lot less. What I mean by inbound leads is, pay-per-click leads. You can, shoot out direct mail campaigns, and then you're going to have inbound calls coming at you. That's kind of like a hybrid between the outbound and inbound. But I mean, PPC is one of the big ones that we went all in on that stuff. And I mean, it took us a good 6 months to figure it out and start getting a good cadence of leads in. But pay-per-click is, I mean, I think it's the one that trunks everything else from that, right? So if you wanted to build a business and then just kind of, take calls every now and then and have, depending on the budget, right, of course, that you're spending, it's a lot pricier. And when I mean pricier, I mean a lot pricier than cold calling and any of the other ones. But you get interested buyers coming at you. So yeah, you're going to have a bunch of people that want to list, are going to want to list retail, but that's all on your copy, on your website, on your funnel. So the better you do at that, the more you mitigate some of those useless calls. So yeah, right now we have campaigns going. I have 2 different pay-per-click campaigns going. I have cold calling campaigns. I still have an absentee owner campaign, which is my mass cold calling campaign, and then I do cold calling campaigns to niched out lists. We do have the door knocker, campaigns going on, and pre-foreclosures. So I'm not doing direct mail. I tapered down from that a couple of years ago. For what I hear, I should probably pick it up again. But right now, we're doing well with the lead flow.
Yeah, totally. Great. So let me ask you a little bit more on the KPIs on these numbers. So by the way, for the people that are listening, KPIs means key performance indicators. It's just a fancy way to say the numbers, how they look, how they come out to be. So on an average, like how many leads are you having to take as inbound leads in order to get a contract?
For cold calling, I mean, I think we're 55 to 60 leads, I think, turn into an actual signed contract. For door knocking, it's 1 in 7. So you can see like the difference. Yeah. If you do a good job filtering out your door knocking leads and having conversations at the door with people, that conversion rate is insane. And then we're right around, I think, 13 to 15 on PPC stuff.
Gotcha. And what are the costs? Yeah. What are the price points or the cost points on, from PPC, to cold calling? I don't know if you track, door knocking. I'm sure you do. I mean, I'd be interested to know what it is.
Well, door knocking is we pay commission to the drivers. So they get paid on a per deal basis. I mean, it's a flat. I mean, so every deal that we close that they generated, they get $3,000. So,
Nice.
so I mean, it's a healthy payout for the drivers. Now, we give them enough leads that they can go after, and they have a like their metrics. They got to hit 15 to 25 doors a day, right? So the minimum KPIs are 15 doors, 7 contacts, 1 to 2 appointments.
Wow.
So 15 doors, 7 contacts at the door, not contracts, contacts, and 1 to 2 appointments. So they don't close at the door, so they don't negotiate deals. They just sourcing the lead, right? So what happens is that they will push that lead over to an appointment with one of my closers, and then we take it from there. So now we bring it into the closing, the acquisitions process, and that's a whole different SOP.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's what they're working those.
That sounds that's exciting. And for PPC and for cold calling, how much are you guys paying per lead that you guys get?
I think the KPIs on them. Hold on, let me see. Let me pull them up real quick.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're spending around $2,000 a week on PPC on one of the campaigns, and then another $1,000 on another one. So it's about $3,000 a week. Our budget is around $12,000 to $15,000 a month combined for the 2 campaigns. One is a smaller campaign, but the SEO is better on it, so it gives us. I mean, it's giving us good ROI. And then the lead count. I know the click. I think we're at around. I want to say $85 a lead. We've done better. We've done it where we were at I mean, we hit 40 at one point, but the quality of the leads wasn't really all there. So we went back and fine tuned it.
Yeah.
But right now, I think we're around $85-$90 a lead on PPC. And you can improve. The crazy thing is that, I mean, not the crazy, but the interesting thing is that depending on the copy that you have, depending on the ads and the funnel, like you can improve a lot of that stuff. The keywords, I mean, they have a lot to do with it too. So if you're not constantly, improving that kind of stuff, like your conversion rate is going to drop. Like it's not going to be, I mean, it's going to turn really expensive to get a handful of leads in.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So let's talk about some of the ways that you actually make money on these. So, you guys get the leads, right? Not every lead is the same. You told me that you guys are doing a lot of creative finance. You guys are doing wholesale deals, and you guys are doing attorney in fact. And I think those are all interesting points that I think we should talk on that someone might find interesting if they're getting into this space. Into this real estate space.
Yeah, no, for sure. We began with a wholesale offer. We're always having, we have a discovery conversation. So one of the things that happens is the lead gets pre-qualified, gets pushed over to acquisitions. Acquisitions has a discovery conversation where they're ratifying everything that's already on the notes, right? So if they had a combo with my lead manager or my cold callers, all the notes are in there. And then they're going in and they're, we trust but verify. So we're verifying all the information, going into this whole discovery combo that dives into the reason for the sale and the 4 pillars are condition, timeline, motivation, and price. So we go into that, but at a granular level, right?
Yeah.
And as we're going through this, like we'll find out what, for example, if they need cash now because they're relocating, or they're in a financial situation where distress is there. I mean, it's going to be a different thing. Like somebody like that is more than likely not going to want to carry unless they get a big down payment, right? Mm-hmm. So on a property, so that's a cash offer, but we always go for the cash offer first. And if that doesn't pan out, we have different thresholds for offers. So we offer more money, but on terms on a creative financing deal. So in the same conversation, we'll pivot into a creative financing structure. And if that doesn't work, I mean, we were doing options at one point. We did well for about a year on those, and this is like 18, 19, and then it's just like they disappeared. You couldn't sell options anymore, so we did away with those. But it's cash offer, creative financing, and then we move on to traditional listing. I'm a real estate broker as well. So once we're already in the conversation with them and they bring up the, oh, listen, I want retail, I'm looking for an agent, whatnot. I mean, we let them know that we are licensed professionals in the area. So, I mean, we can get, give them a discount on the listing if they want to list, and go that route. One thing that we started throwing in there was a wholesale offer. So we'll offer a little more. It's still not crazy. It's still kind of in between that wholesale price and then the creative financing price. But because we use attorney facts and we'll list a property on the MLS. If it's too beat up, it's going to be a tough sell. Like we figure that out, right? If it's, too harsh, people, we have to just go in for that deeper discount. But sometimes, they have cosmetic, things, and it's not too crazy, 15, 20K, we'll do it. We'll take something like that and we'll do an attorney fact, put it up on the MLS through a flat fee service. And just so we'll put it out as an investor special. So we're not filling out any innovation documentation or anything. Basically, we're looking for the marketing and we'll still assign. Once we find a buyer, we'll make an assignment for that agreement.
That sounds nice. Okay. Let's get a little bit more granular or into detail about the creative finance. So if you're coming from a cash offer to a creative finance, what kind of down payment are you guys usually doing on these properties, and what kind of interest rate? Like, what kind of terms are you guys giving them?
It depends. If it's a foreclosure, and we're keeping it, we'll catch up the arrears. And then, keep it in place if the rates are, 2.5%, 3%. So we gotta look at equity or cash flow, right? I mean, ideally we have both equity and cash flow. I mean, it's a no-brainer. We'll figure that out. You don't want to go too high on the creative financing on the down payment if you're assigning that deal. And we do creative financing assignments all the time because your assignment fee is taken from that down payment. Right. Yeah. So, for example, if you're telling the seller you're going to give him $20,000 down and you lock up a property for X amount, when you're assigning that property, you have to work your fee into it. Right. And it's got to be part of that down payment. So say that I want to make $15,000 on that deal and I promised the seller $20,000. Now I have to get a $35,000 down payment. Right. So it's the higher you go on that, on the down payment for the seller side, the more, the less you're going to be getting on your assignment fee because you're in and out of that deal. At that point, you get down payment, you're rolling into the math for the purchase price, and then you move on to the next one. So, and on average, like last year, we bought 86 properties on creative financing. And, it was anywhere from 30,000 to 50K on catching up arrears for the foreclosures usually. Yeah. So we would do that, leave that in place for a while, or just take it and turn it, right? But we will close the property and then just, flip it after the fact. Okay. So it depends. It depends on the structure of the deal. The more access you have to capital, the more power you're going to have, especially when it comes to that kind of transaction. Somebody showing up saying, hey, listen, I can close on this thing if need be, has a lot more leverage than, let me see if I can find a buyer for it and wholesale it. Right. Yeah. So it's still the same, type of structure using other people's money. So if you have private funding, it helps a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, while we're on the topic, why don't we talk a little bit about that? When we talk about that, how do you guys get private money into deals like that? Like how do you sell it? What kind of terms do you give them, and how are they secure, and all that? Are
you talking about private money?
Yeah, like if you're gonna take the deals down, if you're using funding or OPM, like how are you taking those deals down?
Yeah, well, they're going to be secured by the note. Sometimes it's our own capital. So depending on how much the down payment, how stretched we are on the leverage, that also factors in. Sometimes, it's looking at deals that are, the auction steps, right? Getting it there and then just flipping it real quick for a smaller assignment fee, $5K fee, $10K fee. It's fine. We're going to make that in a day. So it's the speed of the deal really that counts. We don't sit on them too long unless it's a buy and hold type of property. But otherwise, I mean, we're, for hard money, we're going down the typical route where you get, 10, 12%. You secure it with equity, you secure with a, 20% down if on your end. I do have some money partners, private money partners that will, at this point, because of relationships and everything, will fund 100% of the deal. And then if there's rehab, they'll fund that too. So that's really nice.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And they get a good, they get a good chunk. But my specialty is negotiating the deal at the entry point, right? So if I do that right, my funding partners are going to eat well, and I'm still going to have a bunch of profit at the end of it. If it's a flip, for example.
Nice, yeah. It's all about how you negotiate it, which leads me to
that's where you make the money. You make the money on the entrance.
yeah, exactly. And I was gonna talk to you about that because organizational psychology and a psychology degree and all this stuff, like. How does that play into when you're negotiating, or how you've taught your team to negotiate? What are some of
it's the one thing I feel that's helped me close more deals. Just understanding human behavioral patterns. I'm a big advocate for, if you take a look at DISC, for example, there's a lot of assessments out there. There's a lot of, so many different ones, right? That you can take an assessment. It'll tell you like, oh, you're, this profile. To me, DISC is at the base of it all. It all makes sense. They all stem from, the driver, the interactive, the supportive, and the calculating or analytical type. And then we have subsets of that. But if you understand that we're all algorithms, you're going to understand what triggers people. You're going to understand how to have a conversation in a fashion that they'll understand it and keep it engaged, right? Wow. And you roll, body language, tonality into that kind of stuff. And it's not about deceit. It's about understanding communication. It's like, okay, like I feel a lot more comfortable communicating with this person. I don't know why, but it's because they understand me, how I speak, my tone. They're catching on. They're not pressing on the conversation on the points where they they're creating pain, not necessarily pain, but discomfort and whatnot. You learn to navigate through conversations as opposed to like breaking through objections, right? Like, and I've never been a big guy for scripts. I think we need scripts to have a framework of a conversation. But understanding and social awareness, man, I mean, that goes a lot further than the best, script out there. Yeah. When you really care, you actually go in there with a solution-based mentality, and you understand how people are going to jump at, certain things and how to read those behaviors. I mean, it makes for a really interesting combination of skill sets, right? Take, for example, like we have right now, you're leaning forward, you have your hand on your chin. I mean, that's if I'm reading body language, right? And that thing that you started doing with your hands is called a pacifier movement. But when you start understanding, body language, for example, right? Okay, like, and I'm sitting across, say that you're a seller, and I'm sitting across a table from you, and you do that. I mean, I can lean harder into whatever topic I'm talking about, right? If it's the offer, if it's elaborating on a seller financing structure and how that works, like, okay, I know that I'm good. Right. And I'm not, triggering any red flags because you're showing me interest with body language. It's pretty interesting. We can do the same, something similar to through the phone and tonality, right? And the cadence, how fast people are speaking. And then when you create discomfort in something or on somebody, you will see pacifier movements. And, they're called pacifying movements because when we were babies and we were just, you wanted to cry about something because you weren't comfortable, you wouldn't like get a pacifier and then chill out, right? So you see that as people, grabbing their ears, playing with their hands, maybe rubbing their arms. It doesn't mean that it's a high point of stress. It means that, something was triggered, that it was just a little bit, okay, like a pinch of discomfort. You know what I mean? So that you're going into a topic that might might eventually lead to, to something that, okay, like it's going to be, a bigger issue, or you can navigate away from it, or lean into it, right? If that's the case, if you're trying to uncover, for example, pain points in a conversation. But that kind of stuff, I mean, it just plays into the whole behavioral psychology of things. There's a lot of things that we do subconsciously that we don't even think about. We can't register. It's too much, right? Our subconscious is operating, 24/7, going, doing its thing all the time. And we have one train of thought at any point in time. So we're not thinking about two things at the same time. Like, we're just thinking about things really fast in switching modes, switching things, but it's always one train of thought. So it's pretty interesting, man. When you roll in the understanding of that portion, and then you roll in the, the structure of the conversations, and then you roll in the fact that, like, okay, I care about what's going on and I really want to bring a solution to these people. How can I best put that on the table for them? I mean, it creates a really cool conversation for closing. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes you get, people do get pissed off. It's not like you're reading brains or anything, but it allows you to see things in a whole different light. It really does. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. It sounds like a very powerful tool in your belt when it comes to negotiation and sales. So that's very interesting. Yeah. I think anybody in the audience listening, it's probably a good thing if you pick up a psychology book and just read through it. You probably get a lot of stuff from it. And I wanted to talk a little bit more. You said there's ways to list with an attorney in fact. Now getting back to how you guys actually sell these deals. I know that from talking to other wholesalers, for example, Tony Mond, he says he calls it a novation agreement, and that's I know that you usually, or like it used to be called a novation agreement when you were actually getting the property under contract, fixing it up, and then selling it with the seller being still as a partner, and then you're paying out the seller. But I guess they're taking now the term novation and just saying that it's it means that you can do an attorney in fact and list it and then sell it as an assignment on the open market. And so I guess I wanted to talk to somebody, I wanted to talk to you about that to see if somebody could do that, and what scenario it calls for, just what kind of situation it all makes the most sense scenario.
I don't like to sign any contract documents. I mean, it's just preference too. It depends on, there's guys that are really stellar at it. Rich Wonders, I don't know if you met him. Solid dude, good friend of mine. But he's a beast, and like his whole thing is novation. So he understands, like he has that, that the entire, like the true novation process dialed in to a T. And in my taste, I'd rather move faster with less headaches. And it's just, I rather, we will do a listing because there's flat fee listing services that will allow you to put the property up on the MLS with an AIF, attorney in fact, and then use that as an ancillary. Think about it as an investor lift on roids, right? Because you're reaching out to everybody out there on the MLS. So really, and then what you do in there is to us, we're not catching offers. So we're not getting offers from the agents. Whenever somebody calls, they actually call my dispo department. And they, we treat it as a regular cash buyer that comes in. We'll explain the entire situation, all that stuff. They haven't worked with us. That's kind of like the one, hiccup, pain in the butt. But aside from that, we get people that come in and the interesting thing about attorney facts is through the MLS is that you get a lot of newer rehabbers. Not the guy that's doing, 5, 6, 7, 10 flips a month. You get somebody who's doing maybe, their first flip, they do maybe 1 to 3 flips a year. They always reach out to an agent to get something from the MLS because they don't know that wholesalers exist, that type of stuff. So believe it or not, that market is huge out there, and you find it on the MLS. But yeah, it's not a true, what we're doing is not a true, like a full blown novation where we sign, offers and take all kinds of stuff from sellers. We just assign the contracts.
Gotcha.
So
okay, that makes sense. Right. Okay, that sounds good. Cool. So let me tell you, let me talk to you about a little bit more. You also have like Pulse Capital. It sounds like you're also like getting investor capital and doing some other deals. What kind of other deals are you involved in?
No, so I own CEO Pulse, which is my education business.
Okay.
And then I own Pulse Capital, that's my fix and flip and wholesaling business. And then
Okay.
I own Pulse Realty and Associates, which is my brokerage.
Okay. Okay. That
So
makes
those
sense.
three, that's how they're broken down. And the umbrella is the Pulse Group.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense. So
Yep,
cool.
yep.
So,
I mean, we raise capital and private money through Pulse Capital for just the rehabs and that kind of stuff. So
yeah. Yeah. That
yeah,
sounds cool.
I'll use anybody else's money, as much as I can.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Especially when you're making a percentage on it. Why
Well,
not?
yeah. I mean, it's a win-win. It's a win-win. You
And
move a lot
what,
faster too. So
yeah, what kind of what are the benefits of some of the people that you're working with? Like, why do some people lend to you? What are they looking for? What are their goals? And how is you as their vehicle? The ones that can get them there.
a lot of, I mean, people don't have the time to invest in fix and flips, and they want to park it somewhere that's backed by real estate.
Hmm.
And we do, for example, for fix and flips, it's just shorter loans. We're in and out of that thing 3 to 6 months tops.
Hmm.
They make I don't have prepaid penalties, but at this point, it's relationships. I mean, they're looking at a good. They're not in the hedge fund business. They just have, at least my lenders, my private money lenders, they have cash and they need to deploy it somewhere. So 10% ROI on them, it's way better than what they get, on stocks and whatnot for that period of time. So I mean, and believe it or not, like, it's, if you have the track record, like, people will give you money. I mean, there's a lot of money out there to be deployed. Just gotta have conversations about them, and then start small and grow your track record, grow your relationship, and after a while, I mean, you're just gonna make a phone call and get funding, 300, 400, $500,000,
Hmm.
and that allows you to be at the front end of a lot of this opportunity that pops up. So without you having to deplete your wallet every single time.
Gotcha. All
Because
right.
think about it. If you have a couple of these guys, they're private money lenders. Now you have a mill and a half, as opposed to having 500, 800 liquid in the bank. I was like, oh, I mean, there's only so much I can do with that. But if I borrow and pay them interest and do this thing, I mean, just leverage it, be in and out. It's I mean, that's something that's sustainable and scalable.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds great. So switching gears now, let's talk about your CEO Pulse, group. Talk
Yeah.
about your wholesaling academy and REI Elite. What are some of the things that you teach people, and on the group, coaching and that you can share with people that would help them get to wherever they want to go faster.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the thing. I mean, you're gonna have to pay to play, either through time and effort, right? Or you're gonna get mentorship somehow, some way. To me, I always used to think that paying for masterminds and to be on certain tables and whatnot was overkill. I was like, no, I can
Hmm.
figure this out. But it takes you a lot longer to figure that out, and then you have loss of opportunity that comes. I mean, if it takes me 6 months to learn something that I could learn in 1 month, I just lost 5 months worth of opportunity there. Of the ability to generate revenue, that's one thing. Then the network that comes in with tapping into mentoring and coaching is just something that I didn't see beforehand. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of people that are getting started in real estate wholesaling. They've been doing a deal a month for a while. They haven't broken that consistency of 3 to 5 deals on a regular basis. And the REI Wholesaling Academy, that's what we do. So I give you the tools, the resources, the SOPs, and everything to get to that cadence, to get to that consistency, right, of deals and that accountability. And then if people really want to take it to the next level, I have the one-on-one coaching, which is the REI Elite. And on that program, I literally give them my SOPs. Everything that I do in my business, exactly the way that I run it, it's basically what we come in and then deploy in their businesses and fine tune. So we bolt on to whatever strategy they're working on already and build that up right from there. But yeah,
Gotcha.
it's incredible results, man. When you have people just knocking it out of the ballpark on a regular basis.
That's incredible. Yeah, it sounds good.
Yeah.
So, when people come in and they, they buy your they pay to play. What are they getting? They're getting. Are you teaching them how to do it in their market and in another market? Are they getting coaching
The nuts
calls
and
with
bolts
you?
of it. Yeah. So it's everything I talk about is frameworks, right? So it's not like, oh, you have to be in my market for this to work. No, it's all frameworks, and you're gonna have to fine tune and tweak and pull some levers maybe in a different way than somebody who's in a different market. But I show people how to do that. So how to tap into the markets they want to tap into. I do a lot of virtual wholesaling. So virtual wholesaling is one of the things that we just drive hard in both coaching programs. Everything from from how to set up the lead generation campaigns to how to catch leads, CRMs, what platforms to use. So everything that you need to get to that cadence again of 3 to 5 deals a month. It's there, and it's the nuts and bolts are already there. It's tried and tested, right? I do. I have a ton of content and video material for the modules and the platforms, and I jump on a call. So it's actually me doing the coaching every single week, with both the group coaching and the one-on-one. So, yeah,
that's great. Let's talk about some of your success stories. Can you give us some kind of avatar, like person came in and then was like, he got into it, and then I don't know, a couple months later he
many.
what
Yeah, so I don't know, like a few up top of my head. I mean, I just got off right before this podcast. I had a one-on-one student. He's been with me, so he went through the group coaching. He's out of Sacramento area. He went through the one-on-one coaching. The group coaching. Then he signed up for the one-on-one coaching. So we broke that whole solopreneur mindset of like, listen, I got to do everything myself. I can't deploy because I don't necessarily have the SOPs in place. I don't know how to hire. I don't know how to lead. That sort of thing. Right now, so over the last 4 weeks. 4 weeks, we've added 3 people to his team. The deal count went from doing 1 to 2 deals to right now he's got 7 on the board, and he closed on 2 last week. So I mean, the results are there, and again, like, they're putting in the work. I have like the super young the students as well. I have a couple of guys that started with me when they were 18, and they're crushing it out of Chicago. So Chicago's a tough market. It's just hard to do business there. But bro, they're killing it. Live in a penthouse downtown, type of stuff, and they're knocking out deals and rehabs on a regular basis. I mean, their deal count a month doesn't go below maybe 7-8 deals a month, and then some rehabs.
Nice.
So you have that. I mean, I have students that have $200,000 deals and whatnot, and again, like, results are gonna match whatever your effort is. So if like, again, I mentioned tenacity earlier, is because I'm a big believer in that. Like, you can have the best blueprint in front of you. Somebody can come in and lay out the nuts and bolts of whatever, but if you don't have the tenacity to go after it and to say, man, I'm really committed to this thing, as opposed to I'm interested in making it happen, nothing's gonna click. Like, nothing. It doesn't. Like, you're wasting your time. But yeah, I mean, as far as case studies, you can go on REIWholesaling.com and take a look at them. I mean, there's a lot in there, but yeah, it's pretty fulfilling. It's pretty satisfying when you get to plant seeds in somebody else's life or path, right?
That's incredible. Yeah, absolutely. You're changing lives. You're not just impacting the person, but their family, and even as real estate investors, or wholesalers, we actually have a service to the community. We help a lot of these houses get renovated, and we get, a lot of new people who come into those communities, and, they become a functioning person, and they help, the community overall, get better and grow. So, that's awesome. So yeah, what kind of price points are you guys, having the coaching programs at? For the people listening, if anybody's interested.
Group coaching is $3,000. That's 6 months access to the coaching calls, and then you have forever access to the modules and all that stuff. And then my one-on-one is $15,000, and that's 3 weeks, so 12 sessions, one-on-one sessions, and 1 year support. on that as well, where you have access to me via phone and text message and all that.
Nice.
So,
Sounds great. I mean,
yeah,
guys, you know, you guys can
keep it
tell.
pretty it's straightforward and simple.
Rafael, how long have you been in real estate?
I got into real estate in 2009. Yeah. So 2009, I started fixing and flipping. I found wholesaling a couple of years later. I got to pretty interesting story too there. So when I got into it, I did a couple of wholesale deals. I was listening to Sean Terry podcasts and, went down to, YouTube University and all that stuff. And Sean Terry put out an ad where he was looking for an acquisitions guy. And I had another business then. So I used to be a firefighter. I was a firefighter paramedic. I left that job because I launched my transportation business, which is the first business I had. And I had that for 8 years. So I built that up. And I was thinking about selling it and getting into real estate. So during that transition, I started working I actually went and interviewed with Sean Terry and I started working for him as acquisitions. So I was his acquisitions guy for 3 years, just under 3 years. But year one, I broke $1.2 million in revenue in wholesale, just me on wholesale assignment fees. Year two, 1.4, and then year three, I was on track to do the 1.8, but I think I ended up at the 1.5 mark because it was just, I think it was like 10 months or something like that. So I mean, I got a lot of reps real quick, but I already had some context in the beginning. So I've done at this point over 1,200 transactions, and I mean, it's just, the list is just growing. It's pretty fun.
Wow, that's amazing. So yeah, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, you have so many reps that you did. What do you recommend someone do in order to get, the amount of reps that you got, like, or get close to what you've done,
Dude, commit, man. I mean, get into it. Like you can't take one, you're going to take no's, right? You're going to take no's for an answer because it's just part of the, it's part of the beast. But you can't get demoralized and then slow down. It's about having, good quality settled conversations, getting in there, have as many of them as you can, because every single one of them, if you're in a state of mind that's intentionally learning, with every conversation, you take notes and you go back to like, a debrief, right? What did I do right on that call? What did I do wrong on that call? What am I never going to say again? Or what should I say more of, and keep testing it, right? So you start doing that on every single call, and you're having, I mean, dude, if you're cold calling, there's no reason why you should be, having less than 50 conversations a day. I mean, how fast can you get into that rep mode, right? And start locking up deals. You just get into the process of negotiating. That whole thing about, analysis paralysis, where you start cleaning up your desk and then, setting up the light because you're going to make phone calls so there's a lot of intentional distractors that we get creative about. Like, scratch that thing off of your to-do list and just get intentional, get focused, right, about putting in the reps. If it's cold calling, it's cold calling. If it's door knocking, it's door knocking. But start with something that gives you volume. Otherwise, you're not going to get to that point where you feel really confident and comfortable. I mean, at this point, I can get rejected by anybody and not not really, feel it. You get numb to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, after 1,200 transactions, I think you build quite a thick skin and just numbness to it that, it really makes you be able to bounce back, much better than someone who's just under, I guess, top.
One thing that I understood, and this took me a while. I wish I would have, landed sooner, but I mentioned ego earlier, right? I would get so upset and feel so bad at the beginning when somebody was just mean and ugly over the phone. But then I realized, like, dude, they don't know me. They have no idea who I am. They don't know what my dreams, my aspirations, what my, ethical and moral standards are. They don't know me. So they can't be mad at me. They're mad at the situation they're going through. And I just happen to be a punching bag that popped up on their phone at that point in time. Right. So, like, okay, like making, catching it for what it is and then setting it down. Like, it's not that I'm not going to carry that bag on to the next conversation. It's a whole different bag. It's a whole different conversation. And that next one can be a bag of money, not a punching bag. So it's kind of, it's counterintuitive, right? To take things personal when you're going through this whole process of growth, and there's going to be a lot of rejection. It's just part of it. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes to just brush off because it's not meant at you. So
yeah, that's amazing. Incredible. All right. Well, I guess one last topic we haven't touched on that I think would be valuable, and that is comping. As an acquisitions manager for yourself, you have to comp a lot of properties. I'm not sure if you were comping them on the spot, but I guess give people a breakdown of what to do, easily at least when you're getting a seller on the phone and you have to figure out whether this is actually a deal or you're going to have to either walk away from it or go a different direction.
Gotcha. First off, know your thresholds, right? So whatever your calculation is, if you're in a standard market and it's a, relatively, active market, you can be, 72% of ARV minus, estimated repairs minus, your fee, right? So you're going to end up with this MAO, which is the maximum allowable offer. And again, that varies depending on markets. I don't like to put, set any of that stuff in stone because some markets, you have to go down to like 60%, 50% just because they're dead markets. And then do the math from there. But that's one. And then when you're looking at comping, I like to start within a half-mile radius. So I'll give you some bullet point references here. Start within a half-mile radius. If you have to pan out to a mile. Don't go over a mile. Do not cross major geographical markers or dividers like train tracks, big freeways and stuff like that. So don't go across that kind of stuff. I like for like, meaning if you have one story, comp to another one story. Keep it within 300 square feet of the subject property, 200 if you have enough comps in there. So meaning that if your property is 1,000 square feet, you're looking at other properties that are between 800 to 1,200, right? Or 700 to 1,300. No, not beyond that. So keep it tight. And then do a 10-year within 10-year build. So if my property, the subject property I'm looking at is built in 1990, I'll look at properties that were, built from 1980 to 2000, right? Those are still comps. This is coming straight from appraisers. I've had multiple conversations about the same question. And it's like, oh, what if I do this, and this? Does this work? Like, yeah, it gives you a pretty standard, straightforward, way of looking at things without getting into the weeds of comping and justifying, an extra window on a house and, shit like that. So remember, we're not appraisers. We're not appraisers. We're wholesalers, right? We're marketers, really. That's what we're doing. We're marketing for properties, and then we're trying to market that property to a buyer. So you're not an appraiser. Don't get caught in the weeds of having the exact, like the most accurate dialed in. Get a range, get a good ballpark figure of, okay, like this is what, this type of property is going for. And hence these are the comps, ARV comps, after repair value comps, right? And then do three to five, and then average it out, right? So when you're locking up the deals, you're going to use the low comps. So if you have a range of 5 comps, right, and they're all ranging from $150,000 to $200,000, for a similar property, you're going to look at the bottom 3 and then use that 160, 150, 170 property, right, to negotiate your deal with the seller. When you're selling it, when you go into dispo, you get under contract, you're gonna rerun the analysis again and then sell it based off of the high comps. Okay, so it's not rocket science, but it always gives us at least another 10K of spread into the deal, selling it based off of the high comps. So just locking it on the low comps, selling it on the high comps. So use the comps not just to find that one number, but use it as a tool for the range and build a profit into it.
It's amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that you gave us a breakdown on that. So for any parting words, for listeners here, what would you give them?
There's a quote, man, that's really, really close to me. It just like I live by it, and it's I refuse to walk carefully through life only to arrive safely at my death. Just try stuff out. Guys, get curious about life. leave the fear, aside. Like nobody's gonna, and then in their deathbed, nobody's gonna regret people are gonna regret the stuff they didn't get to do, right? And I've had plenty of conversations, man. I've seen, a lot of people go through deathbed, unfortunately, working at the fire department, and I mean, it was just always interesting, the conversations they would have at that point. But I mean, playing it too safe is gonna leave you with a lot of wanting, I feel. So I mean, I'm not about being irrational on things, but be curious about life. Take some risks. If you feel like doing something, giving something a shot, give that a shot. And we only get one round at this thing, so might as well make the best of it, right?
Absolutely. All right. Well, Rafael, thank you so much. I really appreciate you for coming on. We hope to have you on in the future, and I think this has been an excellent conversation. And if people want to find you, where can they find you?
My pleasure, man. And thanks for having me. I'm pretty active on social. Instagram is probably the easiest way to find me, at Rafael Cortez, CEO. And I mean, I respond to all my DMs. It might take me a little bit, but it's always me on the messaging. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you, Rafael. Really appreciate you, and hope to see you on in the future. Okay.
Perfect, man. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you.